Hello and welcome, everyone. Super excited to have each and every one of you with us today. We have a really exciting lineup and interview for you today. My name is Kayla Lopez with Military Spouse Magazine, and I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships. I've been with the organization for some time, and I am focused on working with organizations to help them in reaching the military community and to develop strategic programs for outreach. So super excited you're all here with us today. We've got a great group with us. We've got Patty Barron and Eddy Mentzer, who are with us to hear. Patty is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Military, Community, and Family Policy. Eddy is the Associate Director of Military and Community Support Programs. Two amazing people within the Department of Defense who are there to support military spouses. So super exciting to pick everybody's brain today. Military Spouse Magazine is celebrating its 20 years this fall. And since we've been covering military spouse employment partnerships, we've actually been covering MSEP since 2011. And we wanted to include the incentive in our look back for the past 20 years. Military Spouse Magazine has been a partner with MSEP for a long time, I think since 2013. And today is a member of also the MSEP Ambassador Network. So we're happy to work with the partners that you guys are doing such great work for the military spouse community. So for our audiences, I'd love for you guys to tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, Kayla, thank you so much for the introduction. Super excited to be here. The amazing Eddy Mentzer is here with us as well, but I'll go first and just introduce myself, ladies first. So I'm really, besides the DASD of Military Community Family Policy, I am a military spouse myself. My husband was on active duty for 30 years, and I was along for the 30-year ride. We met in college, and off we went after he got commissioned. He's been retired now for a little while, which is amazing how quickly it goes. But I've certainly still stayed active in the advocacy world, starting out with the National Military Family Association, going to 0 to 3, and then my last very long stint at the Association of the United States Army, where I was Director of Family Readiness. Certainly, military spouse employment has been something that we have talked about since day one. I was talking about it as a young lieutenant's wife when I was trying to figure out how I'd go to work in this new place called Germany that I had never been to before. And you figure out and you make it work as best as you can. But I'm so excited and thrilled to see the progress that's been made. And I know we're going to get to that in a little bit. But let me turn it over to Eddy.
Mrs. Barron, thank you so much. And Kayla, thank you for doing this interview and letting us tell a little bit of the Military Spouse Employment Partnership story. As mentioned, my name is Eddy Mentzer. I work within the Office of Military Family Readiness Policy as an Associate Director. I've been in the Office of the Secretary of Defense now for 15 years, which is a really long time in OSD. But prior to that, I came up through the Military Family Readiness System, working in various capacities from installation level through command level. I've been managing this time around, and this is my second stint as the SECO Associate Director, but I've been doing this now for 3 years. Prior to that, I've had portfolios across family programs. I've overseen the child care portfolio, so I have a lot of experience. Just like Mrs. Barron, I'm a military spouse myself, and I've been a military spouse for 24 years. And in less than 5 days, on 1 September, I'll be able to say that I'm a veteran spouse. But it is great to be here and be able to share everything we're doing.
That's super exciting. Congratulations, Eddy. Are you excited?
Thank you. Definitely looking forward to that new title.
Absolutely. All right. So for our members in our audience that may not be, familiar with MSEP and who are maybe newer to the military spouse community, can you give us a little bit more details about the mission of MSEP? Patty, if you would like to give us just a quick introduction of like what it is, what the mission is, and what the purpose of MSEP is.
Absolutely. So as you already mentioned, Kayla, we had MSEP actually started in 2011 after the President of the United States at that time, Barack Obama, sent out a directive, which is called Directive 9 report, and strengthening our military families, meeting America's commitment. in that report, they recognized that military spouse employment was something that is challenging for a lot of different reasons. Certainly, we're a very mobile community, and we stop and start employment as military spouses many times throughout our spouse's career. And so I think the president wanted to find a way to unify the federal government to really support military spouses in their quest for a career and employment aspirations. But they also wanted to lean on the community, the civilian community, if you will, the industry partners that are out there that could really also be helpful. And so through a little bit of research, maybe not so much, we realized that the Army already had something called the Army Spouse Employment Partnership. So the Army had already started reaching out to industry partners and asking them to think about hiring Army spouses at that time. And they were doing pretty well. And we thought, that's such a great program. Why don't we leverage that program and elevate it to the DoD level, Department of Defense OSD level, and make it a purple program so that all the services can benefit from what Army had started. And that's how the Military Spouse Employment Partnership was more or less born. Really, really excited and proud of the growth that has happened over the last, 13 years, is it, Eddy? I think it's 13. And we started with under 100 partners, and we're now up to over 850 partners, which is crazy when you think about it. 850 industry partners that have said, we want to hire military spouses, and they're out there. And so now we have to turn that around a little bit and talk to military spouses to say, these partners are looking for you. How are you going to connect with them? So just a little bit about, MSEP. Really, the focus of MSEP is to connect military spouses with industry and hopefully federal government now, actually federal government agencies that are looking to hire military spouses, and not just hire them, but find ways to retain them. And the really exciting thing is that they're also trying to find ways to transfer that in-person job into a remote job when they PCS, and many more companies are being able to do that.
That's fantastic. It's amazing to see the differences in the workforce now, right? With the changes that we've had in the past few years, that, companies are more receptive, to opening their door to remote opportunities, which is exciting. So another question. MSEP's been doing a ton of great work. I remember when we got started, I think there was like 90 or so partners involved at the time. So it's amazing to see the jump in engagement. That's exciting. How did you guys get involved with MSEP? What was it that drew you to the program or drives you to continue to serve? I know you guys are both military spouses, and I'm sure that has a part to do with it. But, what are the other driving forces, that keep you with the program?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one, and it really, for me, it's the driving need. That the need is always going to be there. When you look at our military lifestyles as military spouses and the impacts of military service on our lives, we know that we are going to relocate on average every 2 to 3 years. Now, for some families, it's a longer period of time. For many families, it's a shorter period of time. So that's a huge contributing factor to the need. We also know that when we PCS, we relocate, we're going to typically move across state lines. Often we're going to move to an OCONUS location overseas. So all of those factors start to impact how we're able to not just find employment, but really maintain a career. For the department, it really comes down to the financial security of our families. We want to ensure that our families, the majority of whom want to be dual income, just like the rest of America, there's no difference there, that they have those opportunities. So for us, it really is, not only how do we maintain what we're doing, but how do we grow what we're doing? And we've done that in a lot of different ways. When we first started MSEP, and this is before I was involved in the program, but we focused in kind of what I would call those big box employers that, global names, lots of employment opportunities. But now we see federal agencies, we see nonprofits, and we see small businesses. And we started that small business aspect about 2 years ago, that we really opened the aperture, because we know that the backbone of the American economy is small businesses. And for many military spouses, if that small business is located at an installation and they're willing to consider hiring a military spouse, that changes the game. And so we really focus in, as Mrs. Barron said, MSEP is about connecting spouses, but it's also about educating employers, that they understand that in a small community, maybe a more isolated rural community with a military installation, not only is employing a military spouse a good thing, it's smart business, because our military spouses are highly educated. They have experience, even more importantly for that small business. And I think this is kind of an eye-opener for a lot of communities. If a military family is earning more money in your community, guess what? They're spending more money in your community. And we know for many military communities, that installation is the backbone of their economy. So if we have more income coming to families, that's more income going back to the community. It's a win-win across the board.
And I'm just going to jump in real quick from another perspective, because before I got to the DoD, I was with the Association of the United States Army, and we were an MSEP ambassador, similar to Military Spouse Magazine, Kayla, and as military spouse. Military spouse ambassadors, right, Eddie? Am I missing a word in there?
You got it. The network. It's the network.
Yeah. Yeah, we would, I would come to the meetings here at the Pentagon and really listen and hear about all of the wonderful, it was the progress that was being made by MSEP and all of the people that were working on it. Certainly Eddie was key to that. It was amazing to be able to go back to AUSA and share that with all of our chapters, because across the country, there was a chapter in almost in every military community for sure, but certainly in a lot of different places. And be able to say, if spouses come to you and say, I'm trying to find employment, this is where you point them. This is where they go. This is where they could really truly find what they're looking for. And that was a great opportunity to kind of partner and win-win because we were all trying to do the same thing. We were trying to support our military families.
Absolutely. That's a huge partnership that really helps get the word out there and reach, thanks to your relationships with them. That's pretty awesome. Hats off to you for doing that. So my next question for you guys is, do you know how many military spouses have come through the MSEP program and found employment with your partners?
Sure, I'll take that one. I mean, it's a nuanced, answer. And because one thing we have to recognize is MSEP is one initiative of the overall Spouse Education and Career Opportunities program that the DoD oversees. And it's a unique program in the fact that everything we do is virtual. I have a very small team that oversees this massive program that serves, hundreds of thousands of military spouses every year. So when we look to our employers and, how are we connecting spouses to employers? We have a jobs board, the MSEP jobs portal, where MSEP employers are able to push their employment opportunities to military spouses. So through that portal, we know that our employer partners are truly MSEP partners. They're the only ones that have access to push employment opportunities. And then they know that only military spouses are connecting through that. So it really gives them that pipeline. When we look to our employers, they report on a monthly basis the number of spouses, the military spouses they have hired. And the reason I say this is nuanced is in many cases because of that education aspect where we're teaching employers about the challenges around employment faced by military spouses. They may have a spouse that comes to them through the MSEP jobs portal. And that's a win for everybody across the board. But they may have a spouse that comes through another job opportunity. Maybe it's on LinkedIn, who we have a great partnership with that is actually a MSEP partner. Maybe it's through another job board. Because we've worked to educate that employer about the needs of military spouses, that's still a win if they hire that spouse through another avenue. So over the years, our partners have reported to us that they have hired more than 340,000 military affiliated spouses. And what I mean by military affiliated is it might be a currently serving spouse, it may be a veteran spouse. So all of those aspects, and we know that military service is going to impact that spouse long term, maybe after the service member is left. So it's really awesome to be able to have an impact on that veteran spouse, even though it's not our primary target being that currently serving spouse. But we want to make sure that those employers are doing it. So all of that, to sum it up, our employer partners have reported hiring more than 340,000 military spouses over the last, what is now 14 years, because, or almost 14 years, because we launched in October of 2011.
That's pretty awesome. Follow-up question to that. Let's say you have a military spouse out there who is working for an employer who's not an MSEP partner. How can that spouse help, right? Like, how can they help that employer get involved? How can they help, either themselves get involved by educating people? I mean, if you guys want to just give us some background on that, that would be awesome.
Excellent. So
Yeah,
it's,
I'll
it's
just, oh,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
please.
No,
No, all yours.
yeah, I'll take the macro, Eddie, you take the actual. So I think that, one of the things that has changed a little bit has been that military spouses are a little bit less hesitant to identify themselves as military spouses. So especially if you're already hired and you're working in a location or with a business, just tell that employer how excited you are to be working for them and give them a little bit about who you are. You're a military spouse. And did you know that there's this program out there that really recognizes industry partners, industry businesses, small businesses, really recognizes them for hiring military spouses, and you've done such a great job, you should be a part of it. And then, give them the information that they might need. But Eddie, you go ahead from here.
Oh, no, you hit it right on. It's, we have a process. There's an application process that employers have to go through, no matter who they are, even federal agencies, even DoD hiring agencies go through this process. And they can go to msetjobs.militaryonesource.mil, and that's where the process starts. So they complete an application. We push them through this process. There is a vetting process, and we do that because we want to make sure that our employer partners are truly committed to supporting military spouses. So, Milspouse Magazine went through this process. Every one of our partners has been through the vetting process. We looked at a lot behind the scenes of what their commitment looks like. We let them tell us how they want to be committed. And after that process, then they become a partner. Now, I will say, and we said earlier, we've had more than 850 employer partners that have joined MSEP since the start. But that's not the number of partners that are currently engaged. So we are always checking the engagement of our employer partners to make sure that they truly are committed. And, there are times when we are going to remove partners. Maybe their strategy has changed. Maybe they have merged with another company. So we've had more than 850 join, but we look to continue that level of engagement. So it's not just putting a seal up on a web page and saying we're working with the DoD. We want them to truly be committed to military spouse employment.
Thank you. So in what ways does MSEP sort of help overcome some of the challenges that military spouses have in finding employment? We talked a little bit about the remote opportunities, and spouses having to PCS, but what are some of the other challenges that spouses have in finding and maintaining careers, and how are you guys helping to overcome that?
So I'll just jump in and give you my own personal story, Kayla, and then we'll add a little bit more after. So I graduated from college with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and our first assignment was Germany. They did not need me in Germany as a nurse in one of the hospitals there, the American hospital there, because it was a small hospital. They already had everybody that they needed. Plus, I didn't have really any experience because I had taken my boards, passed my boards, off we went to Germany. I learned very quickly that if I wanted to work, I had to kind of think about what else I could do. And so I started looking around, and because I had a college degree, I was able to be a substitute teacher. I was able to be the religious education coordinator. I was able to teach BSEP, which is Basic Skills Education Program for the soldiers at the time. And so I learned to be really flexible about thinking about employment. When we got back to the United States, it was the first time that I had the opportunity to work as a nurse. But back in the day, you needed seniority to get the good shifts, which was at that time, the 7 to 3. There was no way I was going to get a 7 to 3. I worked in the evenings. And by then I already had a baby. My husband was a company commander. He was just never home. And it was very, very difficult. Throughout the time that he was in the military, I always kept an active nursing license because I thought to myself, just in case, if I need to go back into nursing, I will. So I've had 7 nursing licenses in 7 different states. Every time you moved, I had to get a new license. That's gotten much better now with the interstate compacts that our Defense State Liaison Office works on. But the moving, the transitions, the having children, the having to solo parent because they're never home. The taking a job that you're overqualified for, but you want some income, so you'll take it, or it works with your children's schedules. That's what I had to do. Never mind the fact that like I mentioned, when they were really little, I had to find childcare. And that was really difficult. Even back then, it was difficult. There's just never enough childcare around. And as well as just being able to think about who I was as a person. Am I, Patty Barron, spouse of Lieutenant Captain Major, Lieutenant Colonel Barron? Or am I Patty Barron mom? Or am I Patty Barron professional? And that was always a challenge for me because I wanted to be all 3. And sometimes you just can't. I ended up getting a master's in community mental health, thinking that I could become a licensed professional counselor, maybe one day become an MPLEC. And unfortunately, I wasn't in a state long enough to get the credentials to become a licensed professional counselor. Every state has a different requirement. So there I was again. And so those are just some of my own experiences, but I can tell you, they really haven't changed that much. And Eddy, let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that MSEP is part of the SECO umbrella of initiatives and programs, and that's really where the goodness is in regards to what we provide to military spouses as part of the DoD. First off, it's free. It doesn't cost a military spouse anything to engage with SECO. Second, it's virtual. No matter where you are as a military spouse, you have access to these resources. And I'll talk about the SECO Career Center. So that is a virtual contact center where spouses have access to career advisors and career coaches. They are there to support the spouse in every aspect of their employment journey. Whether it's a young spouse trying to determine what they want to do, or it's a spouse that's been stationed in Korea for 2 years and is looking to re-enter the workforce, that's where the advisors and coaches come into play. Our career coaches all have a master's degree and are certified educational or employment counselors. And you are assigned as a military spouse your personal coach. And that coach works with you over time. We have spouses in the entrepreneurial space that have been working with their coaches for more than 3 years, where they meet every 2 weeks, every month to work on business plans, action plans, get over those hurdles. It is such a great resource. And the contact center, which frankly, it's a call center. If you're like me, you don't look forward to having to interact with a call center when you have to. Our call center maintains a 97% satisfaction rate, which is astronomical. In fact, in 2022, the SECO Career Center was named the best global contact center by the International Customer Management Institute, which sets the standards for contact center operations. DoD delivered just for military spouses, best in the world. Those are three things you're not going to hear in the same sentence very often. And we're really proud of what the SECO program provides to military spouses. So if a spouse is interested about anything we do, whether it's MSEP, whether it's resume reviews, whether it's, educational funding, the first place they should go is to the SECO Career Center. And they access the SECO Career Center through Military OneSource. We're part of that broader enclave of Military OneSource resources. So they can call in, and I did this just last week live on a call. It took 30 seconds to get connected to the SECO Career Center, and I had a career coach helping me out with some things. It's easy, it's simple. If spouses aren't taking advantage of it, they're missing out.
And I'm just going to foot stomp that what Eddy just said. Spouses also play a huge part in their own career progression and employment opportunities. And I know it's hard to get to a new place and start thinking about where should I work? Who do I know? What is my network? SECO is part of your network. When you think about your network, we are right there. Spouse education, career opportunities. And we have a myriad of resources and a myriad of just tools that you can use. Plus, we're also connected to the MSEP, right? Military Spouse Employment Partners. And so through SECO, you can make that search so much easier for yourself. But you have to be engaged. You have to be involved. You have to fill out the profiles that we ask you to. And I know Eddy's going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But you are also a partner in your own employment search. So I want to really foot stomp that, because the resources are there. Help us help you, and also help us to spread the word. Go ahead, Eddy.
Yeah, Mrs. Barron brought up the SECO profile. And so what is that? What does it mean? So on the MySECO website, where spouses can register to take advantage of all of the SECO programs, you have the ability to create a profile. It's kind of like a LinkedIn profile if you're familiar with LinkedIn, but it includes your skill sets, your experience, your education, your employment desires, all of those things. So why are we building a profile? These profiles are searchable by our MSEP employer partners. So when they're looking for talent around a specific skill set or work experience, they can go in and they're able to search through thousands of military spouse profiles. In fact, this year, our MSEP partners have conducted more than 18,000 candidate searches through the MSEP portal looking for spouse talent. For spouses, what this means on the back end is that they're contacted by recruiters for jobs they didn't even know existed, where the recruiter says, wow, this looks like you've got the skill set we're looking for. We want to bring you into our employer. That's mind-blowing for military spouses, because that's just something we don't hear. But here's the kicker. If you don't complete your profile, you're not going to get seen. And not only is that going to impact you, it's going to impact other spouses. Because what we hear from employers, when they take the time to go in and search for candidates, they put in all their parameters, they get lists of spouses back, and they are kind of ranked out based on their profiles. But when they click on a profile and there's nothing in there, or there's typos or mistakes, then they start to think, well, this is a waste. This is a waste of my valuable time. And they may not use that candidate search function to reach other spouses. Now, something new that we've introduced is the ability to upload your full resume as well, and a cover letter. So now when an employer searches for military spouse talent, not only do they see the profile, they're able to download the resume. They're able to download that cover letter. Now, resumes are challenging, and we want to make sure that spouses are set up to succeed. So our career coaches and career advisors are experts in resume reviews. You can do the old-fashioned way, and you can meet with a career coach, and they'll walk you through what you should change. But some of us don't have time for that. We need a review right now. There's a job that just popped up. You can email your resume directly to a SECO career coach. And the email address is really easy to remember. It's secocareercoach@myseco.org. You send it to them and you will get a reviewed resume with tips and edits back within 72 hours. That's our goal. Typically, lately, it's been between 24 and 48 hours that you get a professionally reviewed resume back at no cost whatsoever. So as Mrs. Barron said, it's all about leveraging the resources and tools that are there for you that the Department of Defense, frankly, is investing a great deal in to provide to the military spouse community.
And Eddie, you said something that really just clicked for me. Oh, it only takes me 3.5 years to figure this out, but what clicked was that it's, so this, the MSET profile, it's similar to a LinkedIn profile. Now, if you think about it, you would leave your LinkedIn profile half done. If you're serious about employment, you're gonna fill that out because you're thinking to yourself, I've got all these people that are searching for employees. Great. But MSEP is also basically the same thing with the caveat, they're searching for military spouses. And so it's much more nuanced than LinkedIn because they're searching for you. So you've got to do the work on this end so that we can help you on the other end. And again, it's making sure that your profile is complete. If you're not sure how to do that, again, the SECO coaches are there. They can walk you through that if you need them to. There's nothing that they won't do for you because we're all in this together.
That's fantastic. Patty, I have a question on that note. So in your experiences, you said that when you started coming into the workforce, you didn't have much experience there, and then you were moving around a lot, which caused a lot of job change. So if a spouse is in a similar situation, they go in to fill out that profile, what advice do you have for them as far as like resume gaps, or should they go directly to a career counselor? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think what Eddie mentioned is that the SECO career coach could really help you fill out that resume. There's different types of resumes now, not necessarily chronological, but other types of resumes, skill-based resumes or whatnot. So depending on what would be the greatest strength for you to present, that's probably what that coach is going to help you do. And in my case, because this was way a long time ago, before the internet, you guys, before the internet, you kind of had to figure it out for yourself. But I'm a joiner. I love to be a part of things. That's just who I am. And so there was an awful lot of volunteer work that I did, and the volunteer work that I did was like I was in charge of the entire Army Family Action Plan at Fort Benning. And the whole program, and it was as a volunteer. So I worked really hard, long hours, did not get paid, but the skills that I had to use were no kidding skills. And so, so the volunteer aspect of military spouses also has to be considered. And how do you put that in there in the very best way possible? That career coach is going to tell you how.
Yeah, Patty, such a great, lean towards the coaches, and because they really are the experts. They see hundreds, if not thousands, of military spouse resumes all the time, and they can help you with, as Mrs. Barron said, the change in the way we typically have done resumes to where we are now, and more of a skills-based resume. What do I bring to an organization? What are the soft skills that I have? What are the experience? Saying that I volunteered, in many of our eyes, that's kind of, well, yeah, it was volunteer work. But what did you do? Did you handle money? Were you a volunteer at the thrift shop? If you were doing supply chain management. We don't think about that working at the thrift shop, but you were working in supply chain management. You were working in financial aspects, all of those different pieces that really can tell your story. It's also important to have a cover letter. And even, we always say that you have to build your resume for the specific job. Well, that's hard to do in when you have a more of a general resume, but you can still tell your story through your cover letter and who you are. It's so awesome. 5 years ago, when spouses, especially on social media, would say, this company is asking if I'm a military spouse. Should I tell them? And 5 years ago, it was like, no, don't tell them. That's the last thing you want to do. That's changed because now you see other spouses, our most trusted resource for information, saying, are they an MSEP partner? Yes, because they're looking for you. A lot of times you look on these companies' websites, they will specifically say, we want you to identify as a military spouse so we can identify you in the hiring process. it's such a change in the way we do business and the way employers do business. We have to leverage that. And I'll tell spouses all the time, if you have to hide the fact that you're a military spouse, is that an employer that you want to work with? I mean, we've got to change that mentality in employers. And then the last part on resumes, more and more of us, and I say us, are utilizing artificial intelligence to start our resumes, to help us with good language to put in there. And that's a great tool. It's one tool in your toolbox, though. And what I tell spouses all the time is AI is going to give you your first draft. Then you're going to go through and you're going to build your second draft. And then when you get ready to submit your final product, now you give it to a SECO career coach, an expert in resume development, and they're going to give you your final copy. So it's really kind of a three-step process to get that winning resume built in. So utilize AI, but don't rely on AI. I've seen too many resumes come across my desk as a hiring manager that relied solely on AI, and it is very identifiable that this was written by a computer and not a person.
And one last thing I want to add is we have, I think over the time that I've been in this seat, have onboarded many, many federal agencies as part of the MSET program. And if you, as you know, if you're going to seek employment with the federal government, you've got to go through USA Jobs. Good old USA Jobs. And the career coaches can help you navigate those applications as well. As a matter of fact, I'm just really proud that Eddy was able to we co-hosted a federal agency, not hiring fair, it was more like an education fair. Eddy, if you want to talk about that just real quick.
Sure, it was, we did this in, I want to say it was February, maybe March, the Federal Interagency Military Spouse Career Expo. And we partnered with the Department of Agriculture to host this. We had more than 1,000 spouses that attended this 4-hour expo, which really shows that spouses are looking for federal opportunities. In addition to the spouses, we had more than 20 federal agencies, and it really was a career expo of what are the opportunities within my agency? How do you go through the process? What are the different hiring authorities that the federal government can use to access military spouses? So it was a great, great event. We know that the administration, Capitol Hill are very focused on federal employment for military spouses. We're in support of all of those different executive orders, hiring authorities, how to use them. But as we said, it's really kind of it's a multi-stage street. It's a multi-lane street. You got the lane of the employers, you got the lane of the spouses, and where we can really help is to bring them together. And it was just a great, great event to introduce spouses to opportunities across the federal government. The other thing that I'll say, it's really important, and the DoD is a great example. You know, we are the largest federal agency, but don't think about a federal agency based on what you think you know about that agency or any employer. So I spent 6 years working at the Department of Agriculture. And if anybody knows me, you know that I can't grow a plant to save my life. So why would the Department of Agriculture hire me? And this is actually where I first met Mrs. Barron, you know, many, many, many years ago. But I went to the Department of Agriculture to run military support programs for Guard and Reserve families across the United States. Who would think that the Department of Agriculture would have support programs for military families? Just like any other employer, I often say, you know, what's behind the wall? Let's take maybe Hilton Hotels, one of our MSEP employers. Typically, we go to a Hilton hotel, we're going to interact with two different sets of employees. The people at the front desk, and there's always this big wall behind the front desk. What's behind that wall? The other group we're going to interact might be the housekeeping staff. And I may say, well, I don't want to be customer service and I don't want to be a housekeeper. So Hilton's not an employer for me. What I'm forgetting, and behind that wall, is that Hilton employs more than 30,000 information technology specialists. They employ security, supply chain management, human resources, training and development, hospitality. If there's a career field, I almost guarantee you that Hilton probably has people working within that space, as do all of these other employers. In the DoD, we've got microbiologists and nuclear physicists. We've got people working in space on satellites. there's just so many opportunities. We can't judge that employer by its cover.
You hit the nail on the head, Eddie. Industry bias is real, right? And I think overcoming that can be jumping out of someone's comfort zone or thinking outside the box. So great words of advice.
Yeah.
So I have a question for the both of you. As far as MSEP and its impact that it's had on the military community, in your opinion, what would you say would be the biggest impact that MSEP has had? And I know we've talked about a ton of amazing things because MSEP has done a ton of amazing things. So that, maybe we're repeating some things, but also not only the impact, but where does MSEP go from there?
I'll go ahead and start and just kind of say that leadership matters. Leadership matters, and we are so incredibly grateful to joining forces. Dr. Biden's initiative at the White House that really made military spouse employment again one of the focus areas for joining forces. That resulted in the economic executive or economic security for military spouse economic executive order. I got that totally wrong, Kayla, so you're gonna have to look it up and get the right title, or maybe Eddie knows it by heart. But really what it did was it from the White House, it asked federal agencies to do certain things in support of military spouse careers and employment. But then at the very top of the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Defense has had some amazing initiatives that are bundled under a title, Taking Care of People. And Taking Care of People, those memos came out, I want to say the first one in 2022, perhaps. And there's been, I mean, we're up to the fourth one. There's going to be a fourth one that's going to be rolled out soon. And I tell you, when you have that kind of visibility, that type of support, that type of you can do this, I know you can kind of gumption behind that support, then you do feel very much empowered to think outside the box. And that's what I would say right now is that MSEP is not stopping with where we're at. We're starting to think outside the box. What does the Z generation need? And Generation C is coming into the military right now as we speak. You know, they're definitely part of our community. And how do those spouses look for employment? What type of employment are they looking for? These are some of the things and areas that we're talking about right now. And we've got some really exciting new thoughts about it, which I can't share just yet, but when they do roll out, you'll be the first to know. Eddie, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I would say that, we can talk about the numbers, and the numbers have continued to grow, whether it's the employer partners or the military spouses that have been hired into industry. For me, it's about the education that we can, because we see the growth in the number of employers, that's more employers that understand the need, that understand the challenges. So that's critical. And then we look to the future, continued growth. This year, we're going to have our largest class ever. We'll have more than 200 employer partners join us through this calendar year, which is tremendous. So we're quickly growing to that milestone of 1,000. We don't stop at 1,000. We continue to go beyond that. But one of the areas that we're really interested in focusing on is those local military impacted communities. So a new endeavor or newer endeavor that we have, we call MSEP CAN, C-A-N, or Community Action Network. And the whole idea there is to galvanize a lot of networks that probably already exist, but around this idea of military spouse employment to empower small businesses. It's easy for us to hit the big businesses. It's hard for my team of 4 people to hit every small business in a military impacted community. So we need to leverage city governments. We need to leverage economic councils that exist around military installations, chambers of commerce, our partners that already exist in the Spouse Ambassador Network. We want to galvanize those community networks to a focus on military spouse employment to really become our voice in the field on why this is important. So that's something that we're going to really focus in on over the next year to build a more inclusive environment of employers at the local level. And then as we galvanize that over the next year, it'll just be part of our enduring MSEP effort.
a great lead into my next question. An employer's new, right? And maybe hasn't hired military spouse before. And I know we hit on it a little bit earlier when we talked about what spouses can do to help. But what are some of the advantages, for employers for hiring military? What do they bring to the table? What are some of the positives? And we know it makes good business sense, right? But define that.
So I'll jump
Go
in on
ahead.
a couple things, and then Mrs. Barron, feel free. There's a couple things that come to it. So this goes for sometimes our senior leadership, and it definitely goes for our employers. The average age of a military spouse is around 32 years old. This surprises a lot of people because we know that we recruit 17 to 24-year-olds, but most of them are not coming with spouses. Americans are getting married later and later in life, bringing that average age up. It's not, that while our recruits may be 18, 19, 20 years old, the majority of our spouses are not. They're older than that. So with being an average age of 32 years brings experience, brings education. We know that military spouses have a higher level of education. We've demonstrated this through another of our initiatives called the Career Accelerator, or the Military Spouse Career Accelerator Pilot, which is a new initiative that we've launched. And what we've seen there and what it is, it's a 12-week fellowship with industry where military spouses are compensated for those 12 weeks by the Department of Defense. So we're paying a salary while they're in the fellowship. Now, here's the kicker there. Education-wise, more than 50% of spouses have at least a 4-year degree that are participating in that. 35% have a master's degree, and another 5% have a PhD. So of the more than 800 spouses that have participated, they're very educated. They have experience. And what does that mean as an outcome? More than 85% of those fellows, and we've had 800 so far, have been offered employment by their employer host. So the conversion rate is tremendous. And it's proof that we have spouses with a high level of education, high level of experience, and a great deal of talent. And that's where it comes for. Now, for most employers in America, they're also looking to bring the most diverse workforce they can to bear, because diversity of thought, diversity of practice is going to make your organization better. And we know and have focused for many years on the fact that military members are very diverse. Guess what? So are military spouses. They have the same level of diversity, and this is diversity from race, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, all of those different aspects that make military spouses an especially attractive hire, because you are going to bring that diversity into your organization, which is so important to be successful.
100% agree, Eddie. And I think that that's one of the strengths, our hidden strengths, is the diversity of experience, diversity of perspective, and just lived experience. We all come from all sorts of walks of life. But, a lot of times I get asked, how did you end up where you are? And what I would answer is I always leaned in. There were times when I thought, I'm not quite sure that I could do that, but I would risk it and put in that application and go to that interview and really try hard to talk about all of the different things that I had done and why I thought I was a good fit for that particular company. So it's a strength. And also, as many of us know, when we get hired, I hate to say it this in this way, but I know when I was hired, I was grateful to have the opportunity to work. It just meant so much to me that someone would take a chance on me. And so I worked really, really hard to make sure that they were always happy that they had asked me to join their team. I do want to just clarify one thing, if I could, Kayla. The executive order I was talking about, I want to make sure I get it right. It's Executive Order 14100, and it's called Advancing Economic Security for Military and Veteran Spouses, Military Caregivers, and Survivors. And that was signed in June of 2023. So it was very, very recent.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for providing that information. And you guys mentioned so many great programs that, MSEP is doing and that the DoD is doing to support military spouses. Military spouses, as you guys have said, are one of the most resilient group of individuals ever, right? And with the amount of education and experience and just ability and willingness to get things done, it's amazing that the unemployment rate, and we're chipping at it, right? But the unemployment for spouses is high. And so I'm really excited to see all the work that you guys are doing and all the great things that you've put in place to help our military spouses find meaningful employment and economic opportunity. So thank you guys for that. Thank you for joining us today. We really, really appreciate you spending some time with us and getting to educate the audience who may or may not be familiar with some of the resources that you guys have. My last question in closing, is there any other programs out there or any words of advice or anything that you can tell our audience that could help lead them to success as they continue down their path?
Eddy, you go first.
All right, I'll go first. So, we said it a couple times throughout, and if there's one thing that I would leave with is that everything we talked about, all of these initiatives, all of these programs, whether it's the Military Spouse Employment Partnership or the SECO Career Center, the MySECO website, the Career Accelerator Pilot, they're not going to help you if you don't take advantage of them. In this case, the spouse is in the driver's seat. If you don't apply for a job, I guarantee you won't find a job. If you don't take advantage of these resources, they're not going to be able to help you. So, if there's anything I leave with, call Military One Source, connect to the SECO Career Center, say, I need help with employment, and a coach will take you and off you go. And it's that easy. You'll be talking to an advisor or a coach within a minute and a half, and then the sky's the limit.
And Kayla, I would add that, the DoD can't do it alone. And we're grateful for all the amazing nonprofits out there that are also focused on military spouse hiring. Certainly very grateful to the White House for their passion behind military spouse employment and always beating the drum that we've got to continue to do more. And that is exactly right. I think that we're always evolving. We're constantly thinking about how to reach our spouses, how to make sure that we're giving them what they need. And so what I would add is that for those spouses out there that are taking advantage of our programs, if there's something that you think could make the program better, if there's a gap that you find that we haven't addressed, please let us know. That I think it's one of the things that I kind of talked about when I first got here. One of my strategic imperatives is bringing the voice of military families to the Department of Defense. That it's so important that we listen to those folks that we're trying to serve. And you can send us a comment through Military One Source or through the SECO coaches. You can let them know what what you're seeing and feeling, because we want to get this right, and we want to be partners with you to help you find the best possible job and career that you can have while you're a military spouse and after.
Once a spouse, always a spouse, though, right, Patty?
Always, always, always.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And for our audience out there, if you want to learn more information about MSEP, we're going to go ahead and put all of the information in the chat so that you have the right links to get where you need for the resources that you're looking for. DoD is doing a tremendous job along with our community partners to support the military spouse community. We understand finding employment is hard, right? It's a full-time job in itself to find employment. So tap on your network. Try not to get discouraged. Keep a smile on your face, and remember, people are there to support you and to help you. And great organizations and the work that Patty and Eddy are doing on their teams show for that. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate you guys and our audience members. We wish you the best of luck on your journey. Remember, you're a rock star, and keep up.
Thanks so much, Kayla, and a huge happy birthday to Military Spouse Magazine.